are you asking the fans to put up with this brand of football now for 4 months? It's going to be a tough watch if so, and I don't necessarily think it's going to change anytime soon. It's interesting, is it? I've seen a debate last night about Arsenal's transfer business compared to Liverpool's, and I don't want to be wise after the event, because when the transfer window closed, I was as loud as anyone and saying what an incredible window Liverpool have had. But Liverpool have spent 440 something million, was it? Recouped about half that in a big changeover, and it seems as though Liverpool prioritised specialist, elite sort of top of the range players in Florian Wirtz, the Bundesliga Player of the Year, Alexander Isak, who the top scorer in the Premier League, Mo Salah aside last season, top scoring non-Liverpool player. These sorts of players, Ekitike, and they've left themselves a little bit short in terms of the depth, whereas Arsenal have maybe, rather than spending 100 million twice, they've spent 50 million, 4 times or whatever.
Yeah.
And they've got themselves more coverage, and they might not necessarily be the same level of player as the ones that have brought in, but they've beefed up the squad. And at times like this, this period of the season, is where it really comes into help. Look at someone like Noni Madueke. I don't necessarily think he's world class or anything like that, but having him as an alternative when Saka is out is perfect, isn't it? And they brought him in for, what was it, 40-50 million, which
He's as well.
but
Like, he was starting games when Odegaard was injured. Now Odegaard's come back in and he's doing well.
I mean, there's an argument that none of their signings made the first 11 better.
Yeah.
Even
the only one that shoots the striker.
And that was the one that everyone was calling for. But even with him, I mean, I think Havertz gets a bit of a raw deal at times. I think he's a really good player. They've still got Gabriel Jesus there. So, there's an argument that none of those signings made the first 11 better, whereas with Liverpool, 4 or 5 of them were supposed to make the first 11 better. But and of course there is caveat, because there was lots of change, and there were players who wanted to leave, and there's that.
Yeah. Every player who left Liverpool, sorry to interrupt. Every player who left Liverpool wanted to leave, so we can't really say that Liverpool have sort of ushered anyone out the door that way.
The caveat of that is, if Nunes had played more, he'd have wanted to stay. If they'd given Diaz his contract, he'd have wanted to stay, and you've still got that pace. You've still got that ability in front of goal. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not having a world where Nunes is still a Liverpool player. It didn't work to this. It certainly under Slot it didn't work, but yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because, like I say, I don't want to be, contradicting what I was saying at the beginning of September, because I thought Liverpool had a fantastic window, but as the season has wore on, you've maybe started to see 1 or 2 gaps, like you say there, Mark. There's a handful of players on the bench there who, are never getting on.
No.
Unless, it's to run the clock down or whatever. And that is a concern, really, particularly when someone like Chiesa is coming off the bench, and I know he wasn't on long, but I think he had 1 touch.
Yeah, and the thing is, in this league, as I say, you talk about the physical side of it, it's meaning that teams are dropping points, and that's possibly the positive thing from this, is that Liverpool now 9 unbeaten, is it? And obviously there's
swashbuckling.
Yeah, there's a lot of draws in there. I don't think it takes a lot for them to come 3rd or 4th in this league. But what they do need is they need addition. They need additional players available. Obviously, players will come back from injury. You've got to look in the transfer market, which is open now, but you're not seeing much going on there. So, but you look around at the league, and there's been we're only on the 5th of January, and there's been a couple of managerial sackings in the past few days.
Chelsea and United.
2 clubs who are challenging now. They're Liverpool's business, aren't they, this season now?
Managerless United and Chelsea.
Yeah, so they're Liverpool's business now this season. Forget Arsenal. I know they're playing them on Thursday, but forget all that title talk, and you've got to knuckle down and try and come 3rd, 4th. It's probably going to 5th again, isn't it? You'd imagine the Champions League if the teams sort of do the business in Europe. So I think this squad is more than capable of doing that, and that just now needs to be the aim, that they get through this season, and then there's still the Champions League, there's still the FA Cup to talk about, so that could provide something different in the second half of the season. But in terms of the rest of this season, they need help. I think the squad needs help, because I don't think it takes a lot for them to be able to come 3rd, 4th, 5th.
And also as well, I think when Mo Salah comes back, Mo Salah has to go into the starting lineup again. This idea of dropping him, perhaps was a little bit of a sacrificial lamb in that regard. But there was a reason for Slot doing it. He wanted to tighten up, which he has done. But now you want to see the progress up the other end of the pitch, which hasn't really been there. So let's bring him back in. As soon as he comes back from AFCON, get him in there.
I look at the squad and I wonder, where has the depth gone? Like we mentioned the bench there, and granted they're missing a few players. It's 5 at the moment, but Leone, if he's on your bench, he's not coming on unless you're trying to see out a game or you've had an injury or something. Isak probably starts if everything's good. Salah probably starts if everything's good, or Ekitike. But Endo's not coming on. In an ideal world, well, we know what Slot's like. He's not going to be sending on Chiesa. He's not going to be sending on Andy Robertson or Joe Gomez. There is no attacking depth there because he's not turned into Engamoa, who probably should have come on at some point yesterday, having done all right against Leeds. So it's strange how the squad doesn't feel complete at the summer that they've had.
It feels like he has to play more midfielders, and that feels like because in that world there where Salah's playing and Isak's playing or Ekitike, then perhaps Curtis Jones isn't playing or McAllister isn't playing. So but it's like the way they play now. And the players who aren't available, Slot has to put all his midfielders on the pitch, and you don't. It's not ideal, is it, when you're in a situation?
Very similar as well.
Yeah, it's not ideal when you're in in terms of midfielders he would trust to start games. You've got Gravenberch, you've got McAllister, Jones, Szoboszlai. You can count Wirtz in that. They're all starting on Sunday, aren't they? So you can't. There's no room for rotation. There's no room for depth, as you say, players to bring on, and this is a department of the field that we probably would have said they're kind of okay in, at the start of the season, maybe one short, but it's come as a result of I think they've always been one short in attack. Yes, obviously Isak and Ekitike came in, and then it depends where you want to count Wirtz, but they were still an attacker short after selling Diaz, a wide attacker. And that's sort of coming home to roost a bit now when you're not seeing these options, and he's having to turn to Chiesa, who, let's be honest, he doesn't trust, and it's just not going to happen, is it? I think for as popular as he is and everything, everyone likes singing about him, it's just not going to happen for him. You end up being grateful that Gakpo's back because he can do a job up there, and I thought he did perfectly well. Snatched a couple of chances, didn't he? But got his goal, and it should have been the winner. And that would have been a story, wouldn't it? If they were able to get out there with the win. Gakpo's gone and done a job in a position that he hadn't played since end of Klopp, maybe. Yeah. And that would have been a good story. But yeah, this season there's always a bit of a sting in the tail, isn't there? And it's just left more questions, obviously, because we're going over them now.
Ultimately, I think Liverpool will be okay as well in terms of don't think they're in any real danger of missing out on the top 4. I think they will probably consolidate that at some stage to piece together a little bit of a run or continue this, steamrolling, unbeaten run that they're on. But it's more just, are you asking the fans to put up with this brand of football now for 4 months? It's going to be a tough watch, if so. And I don't necessarily think it's going to change anytime soon either, because this pattern has been really set in now for, a real number of months. Like I said then, they haven't played well this season. I can make an allowance for Arsenal at home because that's a really tough game and you've just got to play the cat and mouse and you eventually win it with a wonder goal. Newcastle away, I've said a few times, that's a really tough game. Big win. But other than that, there's been not a lot to set the pulses racing really as to the season.
Can't you argue, though, that the unbeaten run is papering over the cracks because United have been poor and dropping points, because Chelsea have been poor and dropping points. Liverpool are 3 clear in the top 4. But if the competition had been stronger, they wouldn't be anywhere near it. And now both those sides have made managerial changes. Granted, that was more tensions off the pitch than what was happening on the pitch. Yeah. But there could be a new manager bounce. That could turn things around, and you could see them go on a run that Liverpool don't look capable of putting together at the moment. Yeah, very true, yeah. And particularly with the next game coming up, theoretically the toughest one of the season, isn't it? And Arsenal away, it's going to be really, really tough. I'd deal on a draw now, get out of there and assess what the league looks like sort of after the FA Cup fixtures. But yeah, you're right, it could be a new manager bounce. It looks like Chelsea are going to get in Liam Rosenior, doesn't it? United have only just sacked Dameron at the time of recording. Some suggestions that is it Darren Fletcher taking over till the end of the season? Maybe Oliver Glasner from Palace goes there in the summer. So yeah, let's see what happens. Both of those teams have been inconsistent for not the first half of the season for years now, really, haven't they? So
Liverpool at least have that in their favour if they can string together a bit of a run. But it's just frustrating that, Leeds at home and Fulham away, normally you would expect Liverpool to get maximum points, and had they done that, that top 4 race now would not necessarily be shown up, but they'd have so much breathing space that they'd be able to afford a stumble or two, couldn't they? But at the moment, it is very tight.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.